So good morning. Like I said, this is the finale, the last part of the entire course, for the new stuff. We've been talking about business mathematics for the last week or so. So we started with, mean, median, and mode, some basic statistic stuff. We looked at graphs. Yesterday, we looked at some formulas like selling price, markup, sale price, and discount. Today, we're going to look at three new things, actually. Three new equations, which might sound scary, but it's quite easy. We're going to look at profit, loss, and inventory rate. Now, one thing to remember here is that all of these formulas I'm showing you, because I am going to show you three formulas today, and we learned like four formulas yesterday. All of these formulas are given on your formula sheet. So if any of you have your formula sheet, you took it from test number 1 or test number 2, you'll notice that all of these formulas are on page 4 right at the very end. So let's get started. Let's look at some definitions, look at some of the formulas, and do some practice. Okay, so we talked about selling price, we talked about cost, we talked about discounts, but something we never talked about is a big term or a big definition in business, and it's the word profit. Profit is the gain of, well, it's basically the money that you made. It comes from Latin, meaning to make progress, and it's the definition there is weird. It says the making gain in business activity for the benefit of owners of the business. It's kind of like, in business terms, it's like the money that you make. Okay, so it depends on how much things you sell versus how much they actually cost. So one of the things we're going to look at is the term gross profit. Gross profit, very similar to markup, it's the difference between the cost of an item and the selling price. It doesn't take into account anything else. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Your gross profit is how much money you made. Another word is, you would call this kind of revenue. Revenue, sorry, that looks like a weird, my U looks weird there. Revenue, the gross profit is like all the stuff that you sold, the money you made minus the cost of that item. So, I mean, in simple words, like if you had, you were selling an iPhone and you bought the iPhone from somebody for 1,000 reals and you sold it for 1,500 reals. Well, you sold it for 1,500. It cost you 1,000. Your gross profit, the money you made, is 500. It's very, very much like markup. But one interesting thing about gross profit is, again, that you can see it in the definition there, it doesn't take into account any other costs. So what are some costs that businesses would have? It could be the salaries of other employees. You have to pay people to work for you. It could be the rent of the building that you own. It could be as simple as like the gas or mileage that you use to deliver the item. So gross profit is the simple definition of profit. It's how much money you made in your pocket, like how much money you earned by selling the item or items, minus how much the items cost. So example number 1, very, very simple. An item cost $400 and it was sold for $600. What is the gross profit? So, I mean, you guys, hopefully you don't even need a formula for that. You paid $400, sold it for $600, you made $200. Easy. So the gross profit is selling price. So you sold it for 600. It cost 400, $200. Easy. Okay, no problem. So what about another, like this example is very easy. It's just kind of expanding on what we knew from the other day. It says the cost for an item is $300. It is marked up 30% of cost. What is the gross profit? Okay, so there's a little bit of extra work here. First thing we need to do is we need to figure out the selling price. So the selling price, and they didn't really give me much room here. The selling price is the cost plus markup. So we need to figure out what is the markup of this item. And it says that the markup here is 30% of the cost. So it's going to be 30% of 300. Let me get my calculator. So that's 90. So really, this is your answer. I mean, if you think about it, I've already solved this question. And I'll explain this in a minute. I'll show you some more calculations, but just think about what markup means. Okay, markup is the amount of money over what I'm selling the item. Like if it costs me 300, I'm going to mark it up 90. Well, then I'm going to make $90. So I'm actually done here. It is very similar to markup. But if you don't believe me, we can actually prove this. So the selling price is going to be the cost, 300 plus 90, which is 390. Okay, so gross profit. Sorry, I don't have a lot of room to write here. Is my selling price minus the cost, or 390 minus 300, $90. Done. Or sorry, not $90, 90 reals. So it is the same as markup. So why am I showing you this? Why are we even learning it? It's just the terminology in business. And here's the thing. You might not sell one item. So this is where we have to be careful. We're going to do more problems on this, don't worry. The gross profit in these situations is the same as markup. But what if we sold, 1,000 items? Well, then we're going to look at some different type of calculations, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But I hope you guys can see the link between gross profit and markup. The profit is the money you make selling an item, and the markup is just the money that you have increased the item to sell it by. So they're kind of the same thing. But we will get a little bit more into some different examples like this one with net profit. So let's look at two more terms. The overhead and net profit, two more terms. Okay, overhead. This is a term that relates to all of the money spent with doing business. So overhead is everything else, like things that you spend money on. So this is the opposite of profit. This is, you're not making money here. This is the expenses associated with doing your business. It could be employee salaries, rent, insurance. I'm just kind of reading off the slide here. It could be even things like delivery costs, gas. Like think about Talabat. Talabat, makes money by delivering. Well, okay, and let's just say a delivery restaurant. I'm not going to say maybe Talabat, but a delivery restaurant. So like a delivery restaurant, they pay for the employee of the chefs, they pay for the rent of the building, they pay for the delivery person, and there is a small delivery fee included in that. All of these things are overhead. Okay, you do pay a small delivery fee, to order from McDonald's or something. It might cost 10 real, but that still doesn't account for all of the gas and the rent and all that. So the idea is with a good business that all of their profit will still be positive. Every bit of money that they spend for overhead, salaries, gas, rentals, all of that money will still be positive. And that brings me to net profit. This is the true profit after all expenses are subtracted. So just look up at example one or two, right? In example one, the gross profit, we made $200, we made 90 real. But what did we really make? Did I have to pay rent? Did I have to pay an employee's salary? Did I have to pay, for gas to deliver this? Well, that's called the net profit. I will take that amount that I made, the gross profit. So gross profit is all the money you made from sales. And then I'm going to subtract from that my overhead. Overhead meaning what else I spent money on. Okay, a couple more terms and then we'll do some practice. Don't worry. You don't have to memorize any of these terms, by the way. It's just important that you know what they mean. A loss. So net profit. If you're making money, if it's positive, you would call it a profit. A loss is when you have a negative net profit. It's when your overhead expenses are larger than gross profit. And honestly, as sad as that is, that's probably why a lot of businesses in Qatar closed during the pandemic that's still going on, right? Like during the lockdowns and, people aren't going outside, they're not shopping. So, delivery restaurants did pretty good, but a lot of other businesses suffered. Um, I don't know so much in Qatar, but I know back in like Canada, a lot of businesses had to close because, if you're selling clothes or jewelry and people aren't allowed to go into your store, or you work at a hair or beauty salon and people can't come in, they still have to pay rent, they have to pay salary, they might have to pay insurance, but they're not making any money. So their overhead is bigger than their profit. So they're at what we would call a loss. And when a business is at a loss, that's bad, bad, bad. All right, I think this is the last term. Yeah. Oh no, there is one more term, turnover rate. Sorry, but two more terms. But remember, you don't have to define anything in a math exam. The inventory. Inventory is an itemized list of all of your merchandise, including their costs in a particular business. So an inventory for, let's say, let's just take a jewelry store or a jewelry kiosk, at the mall, a little jewelry booth. They would have a list of all of the merchandise. So rings, necklaces, earrings, and the costs with them. So it's a very important list that shows, what items do we own? How much did we pay? And using inventory, you can monitor your profit. All right, so let's look at some examples. It's a lot easier than it sounds. So example 3, if your overhead was $800 and your gross profit was $750, what was your net profit? Well, very easy calculation here. My net profit. Oh, and the formula I'm using is this one. All of this is in your formula sheet. Sorry, that's supposed to be formula. You don't have to memorize it, but the net profit is your gross profit. So I made 750 reals. I spent 800 on overhead. That would be negative 50 reals. This is what we would call a loss. Not good, right? Not good. So I don't know if there's many pharmacies that don't make money, right? There's every mall in this country has a pharmacy, or like 5 or 6 of them. I was at Landmark Mall yesterday, actually, and I don't go to Landmark like I used to. When I moved here 8 or 9 years ago, I mean, there wasn't as many malls. Anyways, right next to each other, there's like a Collude and a Boots, and I think there's another pharmacy around the corner. I don't think pharmacies here do too bad. Certainly during the pandemic, they were doing okay. I think maybe not. Okay, so example number 4. Um, I'm gonna just leave this for you guys to practice. So A and B you should be able to do because of what I just showed you. C we did yesterday, and I'm just gonna leave this for a couple minutes to see, give you guys a chance to practice this. So I want you to find the gross profit, the net profit, and then the markup rate based on cost. And there's a little question here you might not know how to do, but I'm going to leave A, B, C, and D for a few minutes, let you guys try this. So definitely try A, B, and C. And if you can do D, great. If not, I'll show you the answer in a minute. Okay, so try number 4. Find the gross profit, the net profit. This is a pharmacy accountant. He or she reported the following information. The overhead expenses at this business were $950,000. The total inventory purchases was $3,670,000. So this is when you hear when I write inventory purchases, that's how much the business spent, like the cost. And then the total sales was 5.2 million. So they made $5.2 million. They spent 3.6 million on inventory and another 950,000 on overhead. And I want you guys to find gross profit, net profit, markup, and the last one, it's a percent net profit based on total expenses. It's easier than it sounds. So I'll stop talking. I'll be back in a few minutes. I'll check your answers. Feel free to put your answers in the chat. Okay, just another minute or two. If you could put A and B at least in the chat, if you have them done. If not, just keep working away. Let me know if you or if you're having any problems. Let me know. But at 1 minute at 8:30, we'll look at the answers. All right, so let's look at the answers here. Asma, if you join late, you can just rewatch the recording because I've been teaching for 30 minutes, so I can't explain everything again. I'm sorry. That would be a long time. So just at the end of today, you can go back and watch the beginning of the recording. Again, I've been going for 30 minutes here, so there's a lot to explain. So example number 4, let's check the answers. So let's just see here. I got one answer from Reem for number A. So let's look. Pharmacy accountant reported the following. So I know that I have overhead, inventory purchases, and total sales. So the first question I want to do is to find the gross profit. So gross profit is the selling price minus the cost. Okay, so what is my selling price? Well, now this is a little different because I'm not just selling one item. I'm selling like thousands and thousands of items. So my selling price here is going to be my total sales, all of the money that I made. So 5.2 million. Watch your zeros here, minus the cost. So that's all of the inventory I spent. So I have my cost, I have my sales, or you could call this selling price. So selling price minus the cost, 3670000, and I'll get my answer 1530000. What are we doing? Dollars. So $1,530,000 is my gross profit. So again, guys, gross profit is the sales, how much you sold minus how much you spent buying the items. So revenue or sell, like in business math, we call it revenue. I don't know why in math 1730 they don't call it revenue, but whatever, doesn't matter. It's the money you made selling things minus the cost of what you spent buying them. So the gross profit of this pharmacy is $1.5 million. The net profit is a little different though. The net profit is the money that you make after you look at your overhead expenses. So for asthma, for coming late, overhead expenses are like employee salaries, rent, insurance, delivery fees, whatever. So the net profit here is going to be, well, my gross profit. I'll put the formula here, although I don't really think I need to. Well, what I mean is you guys have all the formulas written above. So the net profit is the gross profit minus your overhead. So 1530000. I'm just trying to be careful with my zeros here. Minus my overhead 950000, and I'll get $580,000. There we go. So after all is said and done, at the end of the day, well, actually, this is an annual report. So at the end of the year, this company made a net profit of $580,000. Okay, C and D are a little bit more challenging. Thank you, Reem, for the answer there. That's great. And you're correct as well. Well, C and D, well, specifically C is not that challenging. We've done this before. But there's a couple things to consider here. It says, what was the markup rate based on cost? Okay, so we have a formula for this. The only formula you have is markup. Oh, sorry, the only formula you have that includes markup rate is markup equals markup rate times cost. Okay, now we're obviously looking for markup rate. So I can write that as markup rate is the markup over the cost. The question is, I'm going to check the chat in a minute. The question is, what is my markup? Well, we already talked about this in another example. The markup is the same as your gross profit. Let me just check the chat. Oh, nice, Reem, perfect. So Reem is killing it here. That's all. 41% or 42% is the answer. Reem said 41.6. That's perfect. So where did that come from? Well, think about what markup is. Markup is the same as, basically the same as your gross profit. Okay, so like markup is the money you add to the cost, right? And then you sell it. So your selling price is markup plus cost, which means that when you look at gross profit and you take selling price minus the cost, they're basically the same thing. I can give you an easy example. If I had an item for 10 real, I marked it up 5 real, so it's selling for 15. Okay, so I have an item for 10. I'm going to mark it up 5 real, and I'm going to sell it for 15. So I do all that. I sell my product. What was my gross profit? Well, it's the same as what I marked it up. If you mark an item up 5 real, your gross profit is 5 real. So all I need to do for this equation is take my gross profit. Let me write this down too. Hold on, I just got to open up my pen. So we'll have different colors. Okay, sorry. Blue, what color will I pick? Let's go blue. So markup, same as gross profit. Okay, so I'm going to put in my gross profit there. I'll go back to red. So 1530000 over my cost. My cost is in the question 3670000, and I'll get what I'm going to get on my calculator is 0.416 or 41.6%. Sorry, this looks like a lot of writing, but it's really just this right here. They really didn't give me much room to write that down. Okay, D. Sorry, I just had a message there. D, what was the percent net profit based on total expenses? Now, some of you might not have done D because there's no formula for D, but that's correct. There is no formula. This is a kind of like a question that I don't want to sound like rude, but it explains itself. What is the percent net profit based on total expenses? What that means is I want to find the ratio of net profit compared to total expenses. So there is no formula for D. Between us guys, you don't really need a formula for D. It's asking for the percent of net profit based on total expenses. There's no formula for this question. All it's saying is get the percent, find the ratio of the net profit over the total expenses. I don't know who made this book, but there's not a lot of writing space there. Okay, so net profit comes from question B. So I know my net profit is 580,000. Now my total expenses, what are those? Well, my total expenses is all of the money I spent. So my total expenses is all of that money I spent. So it's going to be 95,000 for the overhead plus the cost. Look, every bit of money, total expenses is every penny I spent on the business. And when you do that, you'll end up getting, oh, I had it on my calculator. The answer is around 13%, but let me just do this again on my calculator because I cleared it. Because what your calculator is going to do is give you a decimal, and you have to change it to percent, of course. Oh, I hope I did the right amount of zeros. Yeah, so I get 0.1255, which is about, let's just say 12.6%. I think the answer key says 13, but they're just rounding up. What do you mean? So there's a question in the chat. What about Formula 17? What's your question about Formula 17? Yeah, it is about net profit, but like, what about? I don't understand. Like what? What? I don't know what you mean about Formula 7. Did you mean to use it for D? No, D, that's not what it's asking for D. It's asking for the ratio. There's no formula for question D. The net profit we already calculated in question B. So yes, we did use equation 17 to find the answer in B, right? You were here for that. I used equation 17 for B, but once I knew the net profit, there is no formula for this. All it's asking is what's the ratio of net profit over all of the expenses. And I divide those out because that's what a percent is. That's what a ratio is. It's a part over the whole. And then I got 0.1255 and I got 12.6%. So you are right. I mean, I do need 17 to find the net profit, but we did that in B. So it was already done for us. Um, if you didn't do question B, yes, you would start with equation 17. All right. No problem, no problem. Okay, so sorry, I was just reading the chat there. Last, this is it, guys. This is the finale of the whole course. You'll never hear me again. No, that's not true. We'll do review, but this is the last part, and I hope this isn't too crazy for you. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm going to mention one more, excuse me, one more thing. And this is the last formula on your formula sheet. I will explain this, don't worry. And then we're done. Now, before we finish, I want to give you a little heads up for your final exam. Just to give you a little, like before I finish this whole thing, for your final exam, something like question number 4 would be good to know. Okay, that's a really poor wink face. We will obviously do question number 4 today. I don't know how much time we'll have for a review, but I do have a plan for tomorrow. I have some practice. I have 2 review, I'll call them sample exams that we can look at. And we won't look at both of them, but I also have answer keys for them too. But this wink, wink, I know you can't see my face. Question number 4, very important. Because question number 4 kind of summarizes all of the topics in this question or in this section. So anyways, before we do it, that's probably where we'll end up today is doing number 4. Let's look at the last definition. So inventory turnover rate. Inventory turnover rate is basically says how often the total inventory is sold over a period of time. So like this is kind of like so I live in Lucille, and like where I live next to a little tiny grocery store. It's new, and I think from what I can tell, they're still trying to figure out their customer base. It's a little grocery. They're selling fruits and vegetables, but the types of fruit and vegetables that they get in, the people around here aren't really buying. So a lot of the vegetables and fruit are spoiling. They're going bad. Now think about how that's a problem for a business. You're buying something. You're spending your money. So it's cost. You're paying for employees. So there's cost. There's overhead. But nobody's buying your product. So your gross profit or your net profit is 0 because people aren't buying it. You're not having what we would call the turnover that most places will have. So if you think about like a pharmacy, medicines, drugs have an expiration date. So when you're planning your inventory, you need to look at, are people buying this type of medicine? Maybe in Qatar, people don't like the one brand, they like another brand. Like back home, we have different types of painkillers. Here, you have the same thing here. There's aspirin and Panadol and Tylenol. And you kind of look at your inventory and look and see how it's selling, and you want to make sure that your turnover rates match your investments. So the inventory turnover rate indicates how often the total inventory is sold. If your inventory is not selling, you need to re-look at your inventory and think about other things to sell. High turnover rates indicate that you are not investing too much money in inventory that's just sitting there. So a high turnover rate is good. Your product is moving, it's selling, it's going. So the grocery store I was talking about has a very low turnover rate. They're not selling enough fruits and vegetables in the time that it takes to sell them. So low turnover. High turnover, good. Low turnover, bad. They always say when you're buying things, like you go to a butcher or a fishmonger, like a busy butcher shop or a busy fish person. We call them fishmongers. I don't know what you call them here, but the people who sell fresh fish. The busier they are, the better. Or like if any of you guys like sushi, a busy sushi restaurant is a good sushi restaurant, because sushi, being raw fish, needs to be sold quick. And if it's busy, they're selling the fish quickly, meaning that when you order your food, it's pretty guaranteed to be fresh. Like if it has a high turnover rate, there's lots of customers buying the food, it's not sitting around, which means usually it's fresh. So I'll give you a tip. If you ever go to a sushi restaurant and nobody's there, maybe you shouldn't be either. Because if they're not selling their fish, then how fresh is it, right? Nothing wrong with frozen fish. I'm not saying that, but usually a busy restaurant is a good restaurant. That goes for anything, I guess, really. All food spoils. So busy means fresh, typically. Not always true. Don't, if you get food poisoning, don't blame me. So, which of the following would be better for your business? You Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to like wrap my head around the graph here and how to explain it to you. So every year you're going to purchase the annual cost of goods purchased is around $10,000. The average inventory investment, that's the money you put in your pocket. So the average investment here, you're going to spend $10, or you're going to, use $10,000, you're investing $10,000. So you're investing $10,000. You're losing basically 10,000. Here, the cost is 10,000, but your investment is only half of that. It's only 5,000. The investment is the money that you've put into this at the end of the day. It's similar to like net and gross profit. An investment is the money that you have put in. So in all of these situations, the cost is $10,000, but your investment is dropping the more items you sell. So this is not a final exam question or anything, don't worry, but the high turnover rate is better for your business. The investment that you're putting into your inventory is lower. That means you're going to make more money. Don't worry, that's not a final exam question or anything like that. But high turnover rates means you're not investing too much money. You're going to make more money, is what I'm saying. It's not like investing in the stock market. That's not what I'm saying. It's meaning you're not spending too much on the business. Anyways, that's not part of the question, or I'm not going to get you to like analyze businesses, don't worry. But a high turnover rate is better. So the inventory turnover rate can be determined by taking the cost of all goods purchased during a period of time, and then dividing this number by the average cost of the pharmacy inventory. So take all of the total purchases, all of the money you spend, and divide it by the average cost of the pharmacy inventory. So very, very straightforward calculation. Okay, so number one. During the past 12 months, a pharmacy spends $1.8 million on inventory purchases. Average inventory, so that's like their total amount, their total purchases. Average inventory value during the year was determined to be $300,000. What was the turnover rate? So over the year, the pharmacy spent $1.8 million. Their average inventory value over that year was $300,000. What was the turnover rate? Well, it's easy. Inventory. I don't know why I'm writing all of this down, like all of the words, but inventory turnover rate is equal to total purchases over the average. So 180 0.00000 over 300,000. Let me check the chat before I move on. I'm gonna maybe it's gonna say 6. It does say 6. Thank you, Kalsum. So this means 6. The turnover rate is 6. You're selling basically 6 times fast. Like the turnover is happening like 6 times annually. So over 6 times of the year, your inventory is being refreshed. That's kind of what that means. So the rate your inventory is refreshed, restocked, is 6 times that a year. Better than once a year, right? Imagine if you're selling an item. Like, I hope this makes sense. If your inventory rate, turnover rate is 1, that means 1 time per year you're refreshing your inventory, or like, you know, you buy inventory once the year and that's it. You don't need to buy it ever again. If it's 6, it means you have to restock your inventory 6 times. So that means over the year, you've bought inventory 6 times, which means you're selling the items, right? You wouldn't buy the items 6 times if you weren't selling them. So if your turnover rate is high, that means you're buying inventory more often, but that must mean the items are selling. That's what inventory rate, turnover rate means. Turnover is good. I don't really get question 2. I mean, sorry, like what I mean is question 2 has nothing to do with turnover rate, but let me just see what we want to do here. Well, I will definitely do number 3. Okay, so like, okay, so, sorry, what I mean by number 2 is it has nothing to do with turnover rate. So what time do we have? It's 8:55. I definitely will show you example number 3, and I'd like for you guys to try number 4, and then we'll look at the answers because, you know, this is like wink, 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 a final exam question. So let me very quickly do 2 and 3. Then I'll get you guys to try number 4, and then we'll basically finish for today. I'll mention something that for you guys to look at, and then that's it. We can do a full review tomorrow, no problem. Okay, so let's look at number 2 and 3 really quick. A pharmacy purchased items at a cost of $300,000. Every item, all items were marked up by $35. Overhead expenses were $68,000. Okay, so not a huge overhead. This could be good. First things first, find the gross profit. Okay, so gross profit. I'm just going to write the formula here. So this is formula on your formula sheet. This is formula 16. It's equal to the selling price minus the cost. Now I know the cost. The cost is $300,000. I do not know the selling price. However, I do know the markup. So first things first, my markup, and actually this is my answer. My markup is going to be I'm going to write something in a minute, but anyways, markup is going to be my rate of markup, or markup rate, I think it says in your data booklet or your formula sheet, times cost. So it's going to be 35% times 300,000. Okay, so this is going to be my markup. Now, my markup is the same as gross profit. So 100.
Sir,
Yes?
it's time or plus?
Never, it's times. Look at your formula. Look at your formula sheet.
Okay, it's time. Okay.
Yeah, markup rate times cost. This is times. Okay, so that's honestly my answer. Okay, let me just check. Yeah, so that is my answer. Now, why is this my answer? I mentioned this earlier, so I have done this already. This is my answer. My markup is the same as my gross profit. So I'm just going to write here something. Gross profit same as markup. But if you don't believe me, I can prove this to you. And you do not need to write this down. So I am going to erase this in a minute, but my selling price is my cost plus my markup. So my selling price is 300,000 plus 105,000, which will give me 405,000. My gross profit is going to be my selling price minus my cost, which is again $105,000. It's the same thing. So gross profit is the same as markup, right? The amount of money I add to the cost is markup, but that's also going to be the same as my gross profit. You do not need to show me the blue part, okay? But I am just showing you that it is true. All right, Reem has shared with me the net profit. So guys, don't worry about the blue. I'm actually just going to get rid of the blue. You do not need it. Okay, you're doing more work just to go backwards to reverse the change. Like it's extra work that you don't need to do. So good, we don't need it. Goodbye. Okay, now net profit. Okay, so Reem shared with me the answer. Let's check it out. Net profit is my gross profit minus the overhead. Oops. Okay, so $105,000 minus $68,000, and you'll get your answer. And 37,000 is the answer. Okay, I think that's what Reem said in the chat. Yes. All right. What is the net profit based on total expenses? Okay, so this is the same thing. There's no formula for this, like I mentioned. But it's easy. It's asking me for the ratio of the net profit over the total expenses, which is cost plus overhead. All the money I spent on the business. So my net profit is $37,000 over my cost, which is $300,000, plus my overhead, which was $68,000, and I'll get my answer. Now, let me just, if you can't see, like, where did the 300,000 come from? It's the cost. So these two numbers that I'm circling up here on the top, this is my total expenses. Let me check the chat here. Reem and Asma and Kalsum are all saying 10%. So is it exactly 10%? Because I have the answer key in front of me. Like what I mean is just the answers. I don't have like any of the workings. And it says 10%. But is it exactly 10%? Pretty much, yeah. So my calculator says 0.1005, which is 10%. Guys, I hope, and we can review this tomorrow, but I hope you know how to change a decimal to a percent. Times it by 100. Perfect. All right, cool. So very quick example here, and then I want you guys to practice this one. This is wink, a good final exam practice question, wink. We'll look at the answer and then halas, okay? So example number 3, let's look at this one. Okay, a high volume retail pharmacy store has an average inventory of 258,000. It has total annual purchases of over $1 million. What is the annual turnover rate? Well, what they're really saying is what is the inventory turnover rate? Okay, right. These formulas are so big. I'm used to like math where like moles is C times V and everything's all simple. Or used to chemistry, I mean, not these big wordy formulas. So your turnover rate is your total purchases over your average inventory. Now, total purchases. Total purchases are 1115950 divided by my average inventory, 258000, and I'm done. This will be about 4. Okay, now let me explain this. So when I divide this on my calculator, I think someone, well, let me check the chat here, see what you guys are saying. Okay, this is better, saves me time. So Kalsum is saying 4.32. So what you would say is the turnover rate is about 4 times per year. A lot of people are multiplying it by 100. It's not a percentage. I know it sounds like a percentage. Well, hold on now. Let me just do it on my calculator to double check. Like, meaning you don't need to say percent when you do this. 1115950 divided by 258000. Yeah. So you don't need to do anything with this number. It's just 4. You don't need to multiply it by 100. You don't need to like do anything with the percentages. Notice when we did the example up here, it was just 6, no multiplying by 100. Just divide and you're done. So for inventory rate, don't multiply it. This is it. The reason we're not multiplying it is, and maybe rate is the wrong term. What this means is we're buying inventory about 4.3 times a year. That's all this means. I think the word rate is confusing you. It's not your typical rate where we're calculating the percentage, like a markup rate or a discount rate where it would be a percent. All that this is saying is how many times is your inventory being turned over? We spent 1.1 million and it cost 258,000 to each time we did an inventory turnover. So we did it 4 times. Yeah. Little confusing because I understand because the word rate, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to multiply it by 100. Just think of this as like turnover. And turnover is your total purchases over the average inventory cost. And again, I hope this makes sense. In a year, the total purchases for this company was 1.1 million. The cost of the average inventory was 258,000. So if you spent 1.1 million in a year and your average cost of your inventory was 258,000, over that year you've restocked your inventory about 4 times. Your turnover of your inventory was 4 times. Not 400%. Okay. Finale, it's 9:07. I didn't think I'd go this long, but I think that's like every class. I think, and we started at 8 too. I guess that's a factor. But I want you guys to try number 4, and then I'm going to look at the answers. Before you try number 4, okay, I'm going to get rid of that for 1 second. Hold on, let me share my screen. Before we finish off today's class, I have another class at 9:30, so I am going to have to go. I'll leave that pinned. Let me open up your course. And hold on, let me just see something. I have a final exam review for you guys. Okay, it's there. That's perfect. Okay, so when you guys go to content, so here I'm in Math 1730, you go to content, and scroll down right at the end here. Oh, I don't know why it's open. I think I opened it this morning, but right at the very bottom, there's a final exam review. And this is what I highly recommend you guys practice for your final on Saturday morning. Yuck. So final exam review 1. There is only one. Final exam review. This is an old sample final, and I highly recommend you guys practice this. Wink, wink between us. This is basically what your final exam looks like. A couple different questions here and there. Actually, this final exam is missing a question. Oh, no, it's not. Here it is right here. Never mind. This final exam just did it in a different order. So guys, you see question number 7 here. Find the gross profit, find the net profit, find the markup, what's the percent, find the turnover rate. You'll notice that that question is the same as the one we're about to do. So I highly recommend you guys practice this final exam. And tomorrow, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to go through. So tomorrow we're going to have like a tutorial. We're going to look at the final exam. And there is a key there. I obviously won't have time to do everything, but there is a final exam key for any questions that I don't get to do. Don't forget, guys, for your final, there's also reviews for every chapter and every test. So you could look at test 2 reviews, test 1 reviews. In business math, there's sample quiz. There's no answers for that, I don't think. But anyways, there's lots of practice for you guys. Okay. I always get the question though from students. It's like, if you could study one thing, what would it be? I would start with that final exam review. Start there. And if you finish that, then move into other questions. Anyways, so this question, guys, is you're going to see this. So let's see if you can do it. I'm going to put myself on mute for 5 minutes. At 9:15, we're going to look at the answers. Imagine that this is your final exam on Saturday and you have this question, cough, cough, wink, wink. Let's see if you can do it. Take 5 minutes and then we'll look at the answers, then halas. Nice. I'm getting lots of answers. I'll give you a couple more minutes. Some people are giving me answers for C. So a couple more minutes and, or like, let's say 2 more minutes and then we're done. All right, good answers. Kalsum sent me everything. It looks good. I think E is 7, not 8, but we'll look at E in a minute. I think Kalsum, everything else you said is perfect. Asthma, Reem, D is perfect. And then E is the turnover rate. So I'll go through the answers now. I know some of you might still be working on E, but it's 9:17 and I have a class at 9:30. So yeah. Thank you, Asma, for the answer E 7 times. So let's look at this well, shouldn't say very quickly, but let's go through each of these and get our answers. Okay, so gross profit. Gross profit is going to be your total sales, or sort of like kind of how much money that well, the formula is your selling price over minus the cost. Selling price minus cost. My selling price is 4.3 million and my cost is 3.6 million, well, or more specifically, $3,670,000. So I subtract those and I get my answer. I'll do it on my calculator to make sure everything's cool. I'm always afraid I'll forget a 0. One thing I'll give you a hint for, or not a hint, sorry, but a tip is just watch out for your zeros. Make sure you don't miss a 0 here. Sometimes it's hard. So this is 630,000. That's your gross profit, which is also the same as markup. Not markup rate, but it is the same as markup. Okay, net profit. Well, net profit is the gross profit, how much money you made, minus your overhead expenses, which is going to be 80,000. Okay, I didn't need a calculator for that one. Okay, so just by doing A and B, I've already done most of the work here. Now, the markup rate based on cost. Remember, your markup is equal to your markup rate. I am writing this formula. I didn't write the other formulas because I'm trying to solve for my markup rate, which is going to be my markup, AKA my gross profit. Same thing, remember, divided by my cost. So it's going to be my gross profit, 630,000 divided by my cost, which was 367 0, 0, 0, 0. Sorry, just making sure I don't forget zeros. Multiply your answer by 100. So let me just double check this one on the calculator, make sure everything's cool with the answer key. So yeah, it's my calculator is saying 0.172. So you would say 17.2%. This you do change to a percent. What was the percent of net profit based on total expenses? Well, remember my formula for that. There is no formula in your data book. And sorry, by data booklet, I mean formula sheet. It's your net profit based on your total expenses, which is your cost plus your overhead. So my net profit is $80,000. My total expenses is going to be my cost. So 367, so 670,000. That's my cost. And my overhead was, I think, 550,000. And when you do that, you will get 1.9%. So you'll get 0.019 or 1.9%. Or some of you said 1.8, that's fine. I mean, I don't care. 1.9, 1.8, that's perfect. And the finale, what was your inventory turnover rate? Now, this is the only one that we don't put in a percent. Okay, so just make a little mental note there. You could just call it inventory turnover. So the inventory turnover is my total purchases over my average inventory. So my total purchases was, I think, 367,000 divided by my average inventory. So my total purchases, guys, comes from up here, total inventory purchases. My average inventory is 520,000. And when you solve that, you will get around, I think, Kalsum, you said 8. When you do it on your calculator, it will be like 7.0 something. So it's about 7. And what that means is 7 times per year. 7 times per year, your inventory will be replenished. You will restock your inventory. Whew. Okay, guys, so I did not mean to go that far. Again, Kalsum, just try number E again. I don't think it's 7.5 either. It should be around 7. 3, 6, 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be 7.05. So for Kalsum, if you try E, it should be 7.05. So close. Okay. Perfect. Okay, guys, so that's it. I have a class in like a couple minutes, so I do have to go. I will put this recording up after that class. And tomorrow, we're going to look at your final exam review. All right, guys, so that's it for me. Any questions, let me know. Other than that, have a good day.